Road Atlanta has hosted the Petit Le Mans since 1998. What began as a nod to the real Le Mans in France has turned into its own unique, prestigious event. Now considered one of the most sought after endurance races in North America, it's something of a crown jewel among sports car racers, despite its short history. Though today our drivers won't be locking the entire grueling 10 hours, the fact that all three of the same classes that run the real world race will make this just as challenging. Who will stand atop the podium after today's 2.25 hour race? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch the season finale of the Simulated Sports Car Racing League. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth covering the DPs is John Ambrose. Next to him, covering the GTLM and GTD classes, is Adam Young. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. John, if any of our fans haven't seen what this circuit is like, why don't you clue them in on the details of this beautiful track?
Yeah, Road Atlanta, it's located just north of Brazelton, Georgia, about where my son lives. Quite the number of teams use this track for testing, all various sanctioning bodies. You'll find a lot of the NASCAR teams use this track to prepare for Sonoma. So today, the Simulated Sports Car Racing League has it to themselves. The track info here, it's 2.54 miles in length, or just a little over 4 kilometers, 12 turns. This race distance for this race is going to be 2 hours and 15 minutes. To get a good look at this track firsthand, let's get on board with the GSRC car here at Road Atlanta.
All right, we've got Taylor Burris in the GSRC 4 GT, so let's do a lap around Road Atlanta. Coming down to turn 1, this is a frighteningly fast corner. You might still see some brave passes into here, but a mishap tends to end your day quickly. From there, you'll try to line yourself up over the blind crest of 2 and set up for 3. Knowing your turn-in point will be tricky and require great precision. After that, you'll hug the inside of 4 to set yourself up for the S's. The racing through this valley should be pretty much single file all day, otherwise you're taking an incredible risk. Turn 5 sees a lot of unforced errors, and most drivers pay for it in bodywork with how little runoff there is on either side. Finally, you get a short breather up to 6, which has more camber than you'd expect. That makes it tough to overtake here, and honestly, it's better to set yourself up for 7 anyways. This is the most critical corner of the circuit, with it leading you onto the backstretch. Fail to get a good launch on the exit, and you'll find yourself very vulnerable to attack. You see, it's not just the slipstream that offers your opponents a good opportunity. It's the fact that the turn 10 chicane is one of the heaviest braking zones of the lap. For the layman, that means a majority of the passes you'll see will take place here. So if the other driver doesn't get it done on the straight, they're likely to try to beat you to the apex when you get on the binders. From off the corner, you'll already start aiming the car across the crest and under the bridge. From there, it's very marginal getting through the final corner, which is another really dangerous turn. But hopefully you've kept it together and have now finished a lap around Road Atlanta. See a lap around here at Road Atlanta in the Ford GTE, one of the GTLM class cars that'll be racing today. But why don't we introduce you to exactly how this race is going to go? Because we talked briefly about it. But Adam, this is the season finale, but what else do we know about it?
Well, of course, you know that this race is for charity today. Of course, donation is going to be in the description of the YouTube channel there. Alzheimer's research, I can't think of a family that hasn't been affected by Alzheimer's, at least somewhere, whether it's somebody you know or even a family member themselves. And it's a lot like cancer in that regard, that there's a lot of people affected by it. So it's a great cause. If you can go out there and donate a little bit, that link is in the description of the video you're watching today. Of course, the race sits at 135 minutes. Now, one thing we were noticing about that 135 minutes is the time is accelerated by 2, the simulated time here in iRacing. accelerated by 2 times. So you're going to see some changes out there today over the course of 2 hours and 15 minutes. So that's going to make things pretty exciting. And of course, the classes GTLM, GTD, so that's going to be your GTEs and your GT3s in iRacing here. There's also a DP class. Now, the DPs out there, there's only one, but he still wants to go for the overall win. So we're going to be watching him because traffic is going to be a bear. These are running open setups, so it's going to be a full-on race. Now, another thing too, not on the graphic, is the minimum drivers here is 1, maximum drivers is 2. So if somebody wants to solo this event, the entire 135 minutes, they're free to do so here today.
We'll watch and see how the Black Dog Racing Machine, currently with Julian Orozco, who organized this event, how they fare and if they can make it to the checkered flag, which is essentially what this will be about for them. Qualifying is underway. We've got a little bit of time left in that. So before we go down to that, let's take a look at the weather. And John, we were talking about, and Adam even mentioned the changing conditions with the sun being sped up. It is 100 degrees right now, and I see that it's about 2 p.m. virtual standard time. So sounds like we will get a little bit of sunset. How do you think that's going to affect it for these cars?
Yeah, this track is obviously it's asphalt. It has some little concrete patches here and there, but for the majority, it's asphalt and it's worn out. So, like you said, a 100-degree track temperature is going to make for a slick track. Obviously, we're seeing now during qualifying that the track's rubbering up. I expect to see that increase throughout the day. So it's going to be an exciting race, Joe.
Should be indeed. Right now, our provisional pole sitter in the GTLMs is Sean Duhamel, and then our provisional pole sitter over in the GTDs is Eric Luke for the Apex Button Box number 4 car in the Mercedes. But otherwise, we still have a bunch of them out there still running, trying to increase times. There was a little bit of concern, Adam, about the overlap between these GTLMs and GTDs. And in practice, that seemed to bear out. But here in qualifying, this is looking pretty split.
Yeah, it's looking much better than it did. Now, keep in mind, there's still only about a second and a half difference between the two classes there. So once we start getting into the mix of the race and traffic becomes a problem, uh, that's that's still going to play a role because you're not going to be able to separate or gain on anybody real quick. And Road Atlanta, one thing it's notorious for is particularly about half the track you're not able to pass on really, and that's a lot on a 2.5 mile track. So that's still going to be a concern, but I think the concerns are alleviated just a little bit, though. We're still going to be watching it.
We're taking a look at our provisional pole sitter, and now we're watching David Bowden, who currently sits in 5th in his class. Just ahead of him on the track is the driver chasing our provisional pole sitter. He's got 4 minutes left to do it. There's George D'Angelo on screen. David Wilson for Pilot Performance is only 4/100ths away from that pole time. So David is probably gonna see if he can find that little bit of speed to see if he can get onto the top step, because that is a very, very small jump. And John, when you're in the car and you're in qualifying, you hear you've got that little bit of gap. Is that a huge motivation, or is that frustrating when you hear that you're that close?
Normally it's frustration, but here starting on the pole is really not what you want. Especially going through that high speed turn 1, you want to be on the inside going up through into the S's. So I don't think it's a strategy play because, like you said, he's 4/100ths from getting there. So it's going to be a long race. I think wherever you start, starting up front is great. So I think it's a good strategy either way.
This lap won't count for Wilson. We saw on screen he had an off through turn 7, so that discounts the lap when you go off track. Get another couple tries as he starts yet another one. This is Alex Wood sitting in, I believe what position is Alex Wood? And he is in the GTE class, these GTLMs. He is in 6 over there, number 46. Crash and Burn Racing. Hopefully not going to be doing that today. Puts another lap down, but it's not quicker in that BMW. Jennifer McDonald out there as well. Currently running third in that class. Heading on to the pit entry in his Ford GT. Where we saw Michael Simpson, who is currently fourth in his class. And this pit entry, Adam, actually, honestly, both the pit entry and pit exit, I usually kind of peg those as we prepare for races here as being a little bit of danger spots.
They are. I mean, because you're pretty much coming off of the track in the racing line through there. So you need a little communication, you need a little bit of car/body language to make sure that you're in. And it's led to some trouble before. And not only that, you're also trying to come in under braking too. And I've seen cars spin out and get loose there coming down, trying to get into the pit entry. So that's definitely a trouble area.
And as we were watching, David Wilson improved his time, but get this, it is now just a hair under 300ths of a second difference. So he improved, but just not quite enough. He is tantalizingly close to taking that pole away. And right now, Duhamel is not out on track. So this is all down to whether or not Wilson can get the lap in. And this might actually be his last one. We ride on board and down the long backstretch. This is one of the more popular places for overtakes. Coming down into the hard braking, you can see just how steep of a downhill it is into this last chicane. And I think he is going to manage to get this one and one more, looking at the clock as he comes under the Suzuki Bridge. So let's see if this one is quick enough, or if he's going to have to try one more time. That one's not going to count. He must have had an off somewhere. This is the last chance. No more after this time around for Wilson. Currently, I know we've been focusing on the GTLM pole quite a bit. It is still Eric Luke who holds the GTD pole, and he's come back out on track. Alex Wood going to abandon that lap as the checkered flag comes out. George D'Angelo, currently 6th in class, comes across. That lap doesn't count, so he's going to stay where he is. That'll be 6th. If no one is able to go faster. Eric Luke already has the pole, really doesn't even need to finish this lap unless he feels under threat for someone being able to go faster. And indeed, looks like the number 4 is going to abandon that last lap. Next one is going to be Daniel Doan, who sits 10th in the Too Slow Racing car. And the GTDs takes that Ferrari up and under the bridge, down the hill towards the final turn and right across the line. Let's see if he can improve this 119.7. No, he cannot.
I think he picked up an off track right there at the start-finish line, too.
That is a shame. And that is it for everybody. Our grid is set here in qualifying for the season finale of the Simulated Sports Car Racing League. So let's go through your starting order. Black Dog Racing is going to be on the pole with Julian Orozco being the lone C7 out there, just on a bit of an exhibition run. Sean Duhamel will be starting in second, followed by, starting on pole, for the GTLM class. Second in that group will be the Pilot Performance group. Then third, it is Team Don Bowden with VHR Racing P5. Symptech Racing starts 5th in class, with 7th going to Crash and Burn Racing, 7th overall, 6th in class with them. Adam, what's the GTDs look like?
Yeah, we've got Eric Luke in the Apex button box machine. You saw him right there at the end of qualifying. He's going to start there in the outside of row 4 overall. Thomas Foose and Nico Wiersbicki will start alongside each other, and then behind those guys in the BTL Motorsport machine will be Jennifer McDonald. Then we've got Derek Muller, George D'Angelo, Alexandra Cannell, Pierre Antonio Gugeri, Mark Feil, Daniel Known, Ryan Hoffman will be in row 9. Christopher Sherburne, we've seen Christopher Sherburne numerous GSRC broadcasts. He'll be out there in row 10. And starting shotgun on the field, we'll see if he moves up to the back of the other class, but that's going to be Troy Banks.
You can see they're all gridding up now. They'll have a lap behind the Porsche pace car, then they'll go racing for 2 hours and 15 minutes. John, I know with your real world experience, you've raced at a few tracks. Have you ever gotten to race here at Road Atlanta in the real world?
No, I haven't been able to personally take laps here. I've been here many times with various teams. Um, the pork chop is what it's infamously known as, and so hopefully the edible pork chop won't eat these cars. Hopefully, we'll see these cars get into a single file line here pretty quickly because going through those S's, that's going to be tricky.
Certainly will, especially if they get a little bit tangled amongst each other. They have told the two classes to make sure and spread apart, give each other a little bit of space. So hopefully they will heed that and make sure that they don't get tangled up with one another once they get going in anger. Just waiting for the last couple of cars to grid up. And once again, if you're just joining us, this is not only the season finale for the Simulated Sports Car Racing League, this is also a charity race. They are raising money for the Alzheimer's Association. If you'd like to help out with that, we have a donation link in the YouTube description. Make sure when you get the chance to hop down there, see if you can toss some money their way to help the drivers out. As the drivers and teams all coming together to try and raise that money themselves, but you, the viewers, can also contribute, and they would be eternally grateful for those contributions. As they now get going up and around turn 1 and into turn 3. This is one of those spots that I worry about on the first lap, Adam. Is this third corner? You mentioned I believe it was John mentioned needing to get single file. I've seen so many races start off with a little bit of chaos in that corner.
Yeah, I mean it can be treacherous, and it's usually going to be more treacherous with lap traffic, but the start of the race is going to be obviously pretty interesting too. It works out that I think that with the single DP that we've got out there, that'll help Eric Luke there start in Sean Duhamel start right in the exact row that he wants to start in. So that'll be an advantage, and I think that'll help spread out those GTLMs just a little bit to get this thing going.
We watch the two classes come up towards turn 6. You can see we've got a few different types of makes in each of the GTLM and GTDs, the Ferrari 488 and the GTLM racing alongside the Ford GT, and they've also got the BMW M8 out there, as well as the Porsche 991. And then you hop down to the GTDs, they've got the Mercedes AMG and the Audi RS racing against one another. Two cars that we tend to see popular in those GT3 machinery. And I believe that, do they also have the Ferrari in the GT3s, it looks like?
Yeah, Joe, they run that Ferrari 488 GT3, which is a pretty good, competitive car.
All right. Pace car is over the crest. Our lone DP waiting for the green flag. Green flag is out here for the season finale of the Simulated Sports Car Racing League. And off goes Julian Orozco, but the one we want to watch is the GTLM battle as they get going. And Sean Duhamel is off like a shot very early already up to the front. And in fact, all the cars are single file. Let's go down to John for the start of the GTDs.
Yeah, Eric Luke taking him slowly here around turn 12. There they go, getting up to speed. Oh, Thomas Foos with a great start on the inside. We talked about it earlier. That's where you want to be going into one. Great start for these guys.
Great jump down into one ahead of Eric Luke, who was our pole sitter. Nico Versbaki slots into third. So far, so good for both classes. Turn 3 looks pretty clean. And already, our drivers in the GTLMs are on the backstretch, with Duhamel actually pulling a pretty handy gap to the rest of the field.
Yeah, he's got about a second lead now over David Wilson. Exactly where he wants to be. I mean, both classes did a great job getting single file there through the start, but GTLM's up here extremely well behaved and all about have at least 10 car lengths between them. I think that's the smallest gap I see out there right now. But those GTDs, man, they're being exciting, John.
Yeah, they are. Eric Luke got a great slipstream going on to the back straight. Now they come up to 10A and 10B. This corner's a heavy, hard braking, sharp left-hander. They get through there cleanly. We've got 2 wide behind Derek Mueller there.
Thomas Foos unfortunately lost out on the lead and second place as Versbaki managed to get past him down into the chicane as well. Instead, the battle has switched over to Jennifer McDonald and Derek Mueller, who are fighting for P4. They work their way onto the second lap now, weaving through turn 3. And you're right, Adam. It looks like pretty much all the action currently is down in that GTD classes. They are staying incredibly close together.
Yeah, Veersbecky, I mean, he's going to be all over Eric Luke here, I think, by the time they hit the end of the back straightaway. That Ferrari is just looks like it's just hooked up here very early on. And by the way, I did some looking that, we were talking about the time being accelerated here by 2 times normal time. And so by the time we get to the end of this race, it's going to be fairly close to sunset. They're running this in October. Here comes, by the way, Nico trying to look around the outside of Eric Luke. Are we going to see an over-under here? No. Weersbecky gets clean away. But we're going to be seeing that sun very low in the sky. This is set up for October 12th, and October 12th sunset in Brazelton, 7:04 p.m. We're going to be about within 10 minutes of that, I think, at the end of this race.
Of course, the weatherman would know that. So, as appropriate, mentioned the Petit Le Mans.
Oh, Nico hits the curb. He gets a little loose. See right there in the onboard. Not able to take advantage of it. Sorry there, Joe. I just saw him wear tires just all of a sudden start to come out from under him.
It's going to be awful early if he has a mistake, especially in a dangerous corner like that. You don't want to throw the car away. Thankfully, and once again, look at the curbs upset that Ferrari. Clearly does not like bounding over them, but he takes it well through turn 5 and actually pulls the gap over Eric Luke. So even though the car looks loose, I guess he's brave enough to handle it for now. Let's hope it doesn't bite him. We should mention they do have 1 spare car if they do get damage, or too much damage rather. Don't want to use it too early though, John. Obviously, if you use it in the first few minutes of the race, it certainly puts you under the gun for the rest of it.
Yeah, hopefully they've got that undercarriage sealed up and covered with some thick carbon fiber, because Nico is just bouncing that things off the curbs, inside, outside. We see him come across the line here. But, some drivers, they have to run that qualifying lap every lap, and some drivers know how to manage their equipment. So early on, we're seeing Eric Luke and Thomas Foos, they may be managing their equipment.
That's true. And as you watch those two, a little bit behind, you've been seeing glances of Foos holding off Derek Mueller, who is in the Post-it Note Racing number 37, climbing up the hill through turn 5, seeing if he can get closer to getting onto the podium here. Though he is hounding him as we go through turn 6, you can see not quite close enough for pass yet. Maybe here onto the backstretch. This turn 7, Adam, going to be critical to whether or not he can make it happen.
It really is. Turn 7 is just such a tight right-hander there that You got to nail it because that leads onto that really long back straightaway. And if you don't have a good run off that corner, I mean, you're going to get past. And here comes Foose under attack from Derek Muller. Derek Muller thinks better of it before they go into that left and right hander right there. So Foose hangs on to P3, but I'm beginning to wonder if he set up his car more for when the track temperature starts cooling down here a little bit later in the race. Here comes Derek Muller thinking about it again. He's going to think better of it, at least for right now.
Certainly giving him something to think about. Thomas Foose probably has one eye in the mirror, one eye on the road. They're being joined with these little dips to the inside from Foose. Jennifer McDonald is starting to close in. That Ferrari is looking a little bit threatening on Muller's Mercedes, and in fact, looking incredibly strong now through turn 5. I'm starting to wonder if we're going to see a pass for 4th instead once they get to the back stretch.
Yeah, Adam mentioned it. Turn 7 is crucial. You've got to get off that corner just right to get that long run. I mean, these cars are going to get up to about 170 miles an hour before they brake heavily into 10A. That's going to be important because this track, when it cools down, they can throw that car in deeper and deeper. So let's see what Jennifer does here going into 10. It looks like she's just going to stand back here and maybe try to pick them off through the S's.
I'd say the 37 put a good defense on by getting a run out of that turn 7 we keep harping on. But now we got a 4-car train even, because George DeAngelo also getting into the mix. Across the line for another lap complete. This is again all a battle for 3rd place in the GTDs. We have not missed anything in the GTLM class. They still sit as they were, with Duhamel leading Wilson in 1st and 2nd.
Yeah, we'll give a shout out to the one DP car we have, Julian in the Black Dog Racing Corvette C7. He's just has the track to himself. He's got a great lead, an overall lead from these guys. It's interesting because this would normally play key into this race, because with so many DPs passing, the GTLM cars and the GTD cars would cause an issue. But luckily, with just this one car, I think we'll be in good shape.
Got a little damage, I think, just from hitting the curbs a little too hard. Shouldn't affect him too much. So really, his speed isn't the important thing here. Again, it's whether or not the car can make it to the finish. Let's head back to the number 37, though, racing in 4th place. Not only is Derek losing touch with Foose, but he almost was under attack from McDonald down into the chicane once again. Almost to the 2 hours to go mark, with the first 15 minutes going to be gone soon. Through turn 1, a little bit stronger for Muller, who manages to put a little distance between himself and McDonald.
Yeah, just a little bit, though. I mean, it still very much could close up here, especially if Derek keeps riding those curbs like that. Grabbing a little bit of grass is definitely going to upset your car going through the S's, and I think he lost maybe 500s or something like that through there. It wasn't a lot, but he did lose some going back to Jennifer McDonald.
On the backstretch once more. Usually we see these classes spread apart a little bit over time, but this group in the mid-pack of the GTDs is seemingly coming together. Pierre-Antoine Guiguer is catching the 2 as well. And we have a car in the pits already. Christopher Sherburne is in for Gone Broke Racing.
And I want to say that he was in earlier as well, so I don't think that's his first trip down pit road, and then he's going to go ahead and call it a day.
Well, that is a shame. I thought, oh, you know what? He did have contact with the wall. It was the previous lap coming through turn 1. Not sure that we'll be able to find a replay since it was quite a while ago. But that Audi slid to the inside, barely touched the concrete wall, and got it going once again. So that would be our first retirement of the day, it seems.
Well, something to note.
Oh,
Julian Orzacco has caught lap traffic.
Nico just lost the lead in the GTDs. It was a mistake in turn 5, it looks like. Was it a
Eric Luke
mistake?
had been doing a great job chasing him down, and then I think it just all went away. And we haven't talked much about turn 5 yet here, Joe. Actually, I
No,
think
this
maybe
was
he
a
just let him
slowdown
by.
penalty. Yeah. He cut the course
Oh, he cut
at
it right at the
turn
top of the
4.
S's.
Yeah. Watch on board. This will confirm whether or not he simply lifted, which looks to me.
It was a little bit further back than this. Right at the top of the S's, he ended up just getting in there a little hot and just, instead of trying to trash the car, bringing it back, he decided to go ahead and just run through the cones, running through the off course and eat the penalty. He's got a fast car. He can make up for it, but Eric Luke's also been pretty fast here the last few laps, so this ought to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, as he just kind of takes it sideways there through the door going into the turn 2.
He's got to remember this Ferrari is not a rallycross car, so he's got to get that thing under control. I was just about to say both of these drivers have fast cars because they pulled away from Foose in third, but this obviously gives a little bit of time back to the Mercedes that is trying to chase them down. He's really got the track to himself at this point, even though he was himself under threat in that TF Sport number 27.
Hey guys, I want to bring up the GTLM class here. We've got David Wilson, who's doing a fabulous job of catching up to Sean Duhamel right now. They're going through the S's. He's been gaining about a tenth per lap. So great job for these two Porsche drivers.
Could have a race on our hands for the lead. So we watch the number 39 trailing just behind the number 617 for the top spot in the race. Six of the GTLMs started this race. And one of them is well behind. Not sure why, but Troy Banks is well down the... Oh, we had a car off track. This was at the bridge. It was Pierre-Antoine Guiguer. Apologies if I have your name wrong. He hit hard. Let's see if we could find a replay of this, because this contact with the wall could be race ending.
Yeah, it looks like he just coming out of the turn 10 complex right there, and just got a little too much off the curbing, hit the grass, and that concrete there underneath that bridge, not very forgiving at all. Let's see it right here as it goes through the second part. Off the grass, rear end breaks loose, car meet concrete.
He did have to take a tow. That's probably going to be a spare car that they are rolling out to get it going once again. Who else?
That was Alexandru Cannell there, in car 420, going through turn 1. He went in loose off into the grass and could not get control when in the tires.
Seeing if we could find the replay of the Ferrari. Here we go. Actually going right by the other wreck that we just watched. Fortunately, must have stuck in his mind a little bit too much, because just a corner and some later, there goes the car. Oh no. Oh, and he almost saved it too.
Yeah, that's an incident there of downshifting as you're actually turning into that corner, just getting that rear end light. The director likes to call, I call this track the pork chop. The director calls the outside the gristle. So I think that gristle just got a piece of him there.
Just to give an update, since we talked about him, Christopher Sherburne has rejoined the race, so maybe he's having connection issues or something like that. So, but he is back out there, just a few laps down.
Glad to see him get going once again. We're back to the battle for fourth place. McDonald chasing down Derek in the number 37 car, currently within about 3/4 of a second. Not as close as we saw just a few moments ago, but still very much under threat as they come around into turn 1. Let's see if either of them has problems into this corner. Both of them staying out of the gristle, thankfully. their way down through the S's once more and up to the very dangerous turn 5. Post-it note car not wanting to stick it into the wall. No one on that one? All right, well, let's let that one die.
I felt it said it what it needed to say.
Yeah.
Onto the
There-
backstretch. Ooh, McDonald's looking very close this time.
Yeah, that Ferrari looks really good through the S's and the tight corners. It doesn't seem to have the legs though on these long straightaways.
I've heard a lot of drivers say that the Ferrari is a good all-around car, not really strong in anything, but really well balanced. Look at it once again, closing. Jennifer, very good under the brakes, but just can't do anything quite with it. Never close enough in the braking zones. As we ride on board, coming across the start-finish line one more time. He's going to have to really set this one up if he wants to get that pass done. She's been working on it for quite a while now.
I think at this point, you're just almost kind of waiting for Derek Moeller to make some sort of mistake in order to try to, get around him. But here the last little bit, he's been pretty spot on, hitting his marks pretty well. Jennifer McDonald, though, still there, just hanging out, not really trying to force the issue or anything else. So that's good. Now, car coming up behind him, though, that's George D'Angelo's really been gaining on him here the last little bit. And, of course, you got Julian Orzacco getting ready to lap them here in the DP.
Is just going to sneak to the inside through 6 and 7 and leave him be after that. D'Angelo going to try and pull a little bit of a toe off of that prototype down the backstretch to make that time back up. This is where you can see the difference between the DPs and the GTLMs as the speed gets higher. That DP and also strong under braking down into the chicane, gets another one done, but once again separating the two cars from a battle as it puts Jennifer McDonald slightly away from Moeller.
Yeah, and actually more under the gun from George D'Angelo. Like I said, George has been really catching them here the last few laps, so might actually be the fastest GTD out there right now. So he's going to be somebody to watch. I think Jennifer McDonald should definitely not feel safe with him behind him in the regards that he's got a fast car right now.
Do you think we'll see much of this over the course of the race, John, where the certain cars might come and go based on setup? Well, as D'Angelo had a big moment over the crest, we need an onboard replay of the number 20. This was just about disaster. We see from the Pennsylvania driver's view, the Mercedes looking pretty good through 4 and down into the S's. The trouble starts up and over the crest to turn 5. Let's watch the hands.
The crazy thing is yeah, he lost time, but he didn't lose all that much time while trying to save that car coming off 5. And Joe, we hadn't talked a lot about how much of a trouble spot turn 5 is, but I mean, every single class car that we've ever had at Road Atlanta, turn 5 has been a problem, just because it gets kind of off camber. The car, car gets light over top of that crest. It has a tendency to throw people a curveball right there.
Certainly does. We continue to watch to see if D'Angelo can run down McDonald. This was the trouble spot before, through turn 5. Is it going to be a little bit safer this time through? Did he learn his lesson? Still a little shaky over the curbs. And in fact, once again, losing time through that uphill left-hander, just not as strong as the Ferrari for some reason. But back to the point I was asking you about, John, with the setups in the car. Do you think with the time difference from the start to the end of this race, do you think we'll see some ebb and flow between cars based on setups?
I think you will. I also think, some of these drivers are as we see a car there off a 5, a Ferrari, I think you're going to see, these drivers learn certain things about these cars during this run and possibly make changes in that upcoming pit stop. So the track has already cooled down 2 degrees. Probably expected to see another maybe 5 to 8 degrees over the course of this race. So some strategies and changes could be in play here.
That Ferrari you mentioned was Daniel Doan in Too Slow Racing's number 45. Not sure if we can get a replay. This was coming out of turn 5 that he hit the inside wall. Thankfully, it was where the tires are. Fortunately, there were not lightning fast reflexes on that Lightning McQueen themed car. Oh, it's a little bit of a pancake. Keeps it going. Don't know how much damage is on that 45, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think he's gonna be okay. Looks like just a little bit of that left front fender, a little tweaked out, but other than that, I think he's doing pretty good.
Glad to see he's able to continue on. We wondered about Troy Banks catching back up to the GTLM field. Well, he's not caught up quite yet, but he is about halfway through the GTD cars. Mark File is the next one up for him, but it is a long ways up to the next car, which is Don Bowden. There's Banks currently riding across the start-finish line in his Porsche. Now, I've been trying to figure out, because I've been told the German way is to say it Porsche, and then all of a sudden on air I heard Martin Brundle a couple weeks ago call it a Porsche, and so now I'm confused.
It is Porsche.
Porsche.
It has always been Porsche. It will always be Porsche.
Okay.
Tell us how you really feel, John.
John's a guy who works on cars, so I'll take his word for it. Back up to Thomas Foose, who is still leading the way in third ahead of Muller, as well as McDonald and D'Angelo. They are dropping away. They were getting very close for a number of laps. Oh, this Foose has little wheels off track coming through the chicane. That certainly won't help, and that could bring it back together. But this battle that was pretty intense has started to cool a little bit and started to simmer instead. One little mistake will potentially bring them back together. So Foose needs to, Muller needs to watch out. He was the one that had a wheel off through the exit of the chicane.
Guys,
Yeah.
we have
Meanwhile,
Nico.
our GTLM leaders here are starting to get a little bit closer again. Sean Duhamel and David Wilson getting close to about a second now. So it's going to be a battle to watch out for here in the next little bit.
I tell you what, Nico just had a horrific save.
One of the cars we've been watching, George D'Angelo, loses it out of turn 5.
Well, we're on replay. We'll get to that other moment in just a second. We're seeing what happened to the second place driver, and it looks like it's 2 incidents. We'll see the first one here through turn 3, where he once again cuts the course, and then after that in turn 5, we mentioned that he had a monumentous save. There's the incident that sends the cones flying. Now watch this, coming up and over the treacherous turn 5. Down to the inside. The car was already sliding as soon as he turned in.
D'Angelo here is, he's going to be coming up turn 5. He's going to run a little bit wide and hit that gravel just enough, sends him off into the grass, and then back across the track. And look at this car climb that wall and almost out of the ballpark.
Thankfully managed to get it back on, but there's so much damage. Let's watch from on board. He almost got
that thing all the way. And I hate to say it, but this is one of those times where driving it back almost isn't worth it, because I think you're actually losing more time than you're gaining by just not having taken the tow right after the incident. But I see why George would have tried to bring it back.
We're not quite to the sea here in Atlanta, but we're close enough for crabs, it seems. Unfortunately, George having to limp it home.
Look at
Oh,
the GTLM class here. First and second got to have a great battle coming down the back straightaway here in 8.
yeah, that's the GTD battle actually for second place as Nico manages to quickly retake it from Foose. He was overtaken with his save. Let's take another look at this pass since we only just saw the end of it. So this all started in the chicane. You're going to see Foose is already under threat, but interestingly, Nico didn't do it in the chicane where most drivers did. He launches himself out of the corner, takes it in the final turn, and just like that, he moves himself to the middle step of the podium.
All right, so while that separates out, we do need to go to the GTLM lead here because David Wilson keeps flirting with trying to do something here with Sean Duhamel. It's been brewing for the last couple of laps, and now I think David Wilson's just one good run down the back straightaway from taking the GTLM lead. In fact, Sean Duhamel does not have a good run out of turn 5. He's going to be under attack here. David Wilson's going to think better of it for right now. In fact, I think he backs up just enough. He's going to try to get that good run here, coming out of 7 and heading down the back straightaway, I think.
We saw Sean go defensive and decided now's the time to try and set him up. Wilson doesn't get the best of launches, but a decent one. I don't know that he's going to be close enough. They're coming up on lap traffic, but it's within their own class. It's Troy Banks down ahead, so they're not going to catch him quickly. Once again, Sean drifting off to the middle of the track, now coming back to the racing line. He clearly feels like he's being threatened as he's trying to cover off David Wilson. Nothing working quite yet, but this is starting to look like it is a matter of time.
Really is, and right now it seems like Sean Duhamel's better in the back half of the track, where David Wilson's better in the first half of the track. So that's where David Wilson's really making his gains. We'll just watch him coming up here through the S's, going up into turn 5 eventually, and we'll see if he's able to make any gains. This time around, it looks like he's actually falling off a little bit though.
Have to regroup, get back up to the rear wing of that Porsche and see what he can do. Definitely not close enough to try and threaten a pass into 6th this time around. Sean knows it. He stays on the racing line. No longer needs to make those defensive moves. Oh, and we had a repass for second place. Foose is back past Nico. And this was another cut course. This has been the Achilles heel of that Ferrari all race long. This is what, the 3rd cut course we've seen?
And I think at all 3 different parts of the track, same scenario. He tries to go to the corner, a little bit too hot, rear end can't keep traction. He takes it into the grass to save the car.
One more look at it. Deep into the corner, he knows it. Just abandons the corner and back on track. If he could get the car to stay on the paved stuff, I think he'd have a chance at the win here. Looks like Troy Banks is coming into pit. I believe this is scheduled because he was getting ready to be lapped by the leader, so I think he elected to just get out of the way, get his pit stop done. This should be within the window. Oh, no, he's just disappeared. Oh, he's disconnected. That is it for Troy Banks. Back to this battle for second and the GTDs. And, ooh, Nico in. There's Vicky. Has elected to take a stop about half an hour into this race.
Might be trying to just take it at the front part of the pit window and maybe have 2 even stops at the end, as we head toward the end of the race instead of a short stop at the end. Oh, that's not the way to do that if you're going to do that strategy.
Yeah, going to be hard to make that time up. He went well past it too. So this is multiple seconds lost in the pit lane, which is critical when everybody else is up to speed. We switched back to Duhamel. in the lead of the GTLMs, still ahead of David Wilson.
Looks like we've got a car in the wall there.
Is that George again?
Yeah, it is.
It is. It's George again.
This one on the entry into turn 5.
And since he used his faster pair the last time, that his car is hurt again. We'll see if he tries to get it fixed. But that might be terminal there.
This is where it happens. Out of the S's. Wow, John, I've never seen a car snap loose like that in the middle of the S's.
Yeah, it looked like he went too hot in 3, and for some reason he turned right instead of turned left, and it just, the car unloaded and spun. So I don't know what happened.
Also got Michael Simpson pitting.
And it happened a little while ago. We don't need to go back to it, but it was a battle we've been watching since the beginning of the race. Jennifer McDonald finally got around Derek Muller.
We might have a replay in the past. Let's take a look.
Okay, hey, let's go.
I mean, it's worth seeing how this finally happened.
Yeah, because Derek Muller, you're gonna watch him here come out, hits that grass, back end breaks loose, and doesn't even, he realizes what's going on, so he, moves over and lets Jennifer McDonald get by clean. But he's back on the attack again right now.
So you're saying the post-it note car got the memo?
He got the memo.
All right.
Terrible dad jokes. 0, Joe 1.
It looks like Muller is indeed right back under the rear wing of that Ferrari, seeing if he could get third place from the number 55. This is now for third place since we've had Nico come in for his pit stop. Actually, where did Nico come back out? Looks like he's in 8th place currently. But again, he is off strategy compared to those around him, so we're going to have to wait to see how that plays out.
Jennifer McDonald really, really using those curbs. Doesn't seem to be having as much trouble with them as what Nico was having in his Ferrari.
Hey guys, real quick in the GTLM class, the leader Sean, he's coming in on lap traffic, and that has brought David Wilson to his back door.
We'll wait on that for just a second, because I think we might have a pass about to happen down the backstretch. It was a great run out of turn 7 for Derek, and he's closing in. He looks to the inside. No defense from Jennifer. She's going to stay on the racing line. She knew it. She didn't have to duck off because there was no attack. Let's go to the lead.
No, go back. Derek Muller, hard hit.
Yep, there was no pass for the lead, so let's look and see how this happened.
Right when we left them, he's going to come out here, going through the right-hander, and back end just would not handle, into the concrete on one side, comes back, he's going to hit the concrete on the other side too.
And not only was that almost exactly like what we saw before with another Mercedes hitting the grass and spinning into that wall, but that looked a lot like how he lost that position initially, just touching that outside grass, and it finally bit him.
Yeah, it just ate the concrete twice there. I mean, that's tough. He was having a good day too, and gonna have to take the tow and the fast repair. Oh, actually, he did not take a tow. He was able to drive it around, so.
Yeah, it was awful close to that pit entry. I guess he figured might as well. Well, this promotes Jennifer McDonald up to third. Well, she was already in third, I suppose, but now no longer under threat. If anything, she is essentially racing Nico because of his long pit stop. He should have lost enough time, but I believe that should bring Jennifer into the fold, depending on the pace that Nico has on his own, which is something that we haven't really talked about, John, is maybe that's the reasoning for his early stop. Maybe maybe he races better when he's out on his own and can focus on himself. Maybe his pace will be more consistent.
Yeah, we talked about it right at the beginning of the race. Nico seemed to, again, I think he's just one of those drivers. He's really fast, but unfortunately, not every lap is a qualifying lap, and you've got to learn to, manage your equipment. And I think, he just burned his stuff up too quick.
Let's see if he can learn to take care of it for the next couple stints. We ride on board with second place in the GTLMs. This is David Wilson, who we're on the dash of. They are currently fighting for first in that class. No traffic up ahead. Sean Duhamel, your leader. We've got a ways until they get to Jennifer McDonald, who's the next car line.
Coincidentally, these are also the last two cars on the overall lead lap. So, other than, of course, your DP.
I mean, wouldn't it? I don't know. Do you count the DP as the overall lead lap?
He's kind of out there in an exhibition run today, but he wants that overall win. Julian Orzako, he wants to be P1 today.
Fun fact: there was a GT car that took the overall win one year at Team Le Mans.
Yeah, it was Rain. I think the great equalizer. And of course, those GT cars, they had I think the traction control and all that, where the DPs and all that did not. That was only, I think, what, 3 or 4 years ago? Maybe not even that.
15, I want to say. Yeah. Not too long ago. What a weird
spoiler
year
alert.
I was getting ready to watch the final 5 hours. You ruined it, Adam.
I'm good at that.
As we watch this battle for the lead here in the GTLMs. Wilson so close for so long. I'm curious if this is outright pace, or is David just kind of playing with Duhamel at this point? Is he just kind of cruising and as John keeps saying, saving his stuff, waiting for the right moment for the race to come to him?
Well, they are two of the most consistent drivers. I watch their laps almost every time by, and they're all hovering in the high 117s, low 118s. So, at this point, I don't know if David Wilson is saving his stuff. I think he's, let's face it, I think if he pits, he will make changes.
Take a look and see how the laps compare between the two of them.
And I don't know if we have it. It's okay if we don't, but turn 5 bit another one. Daniel Doan is without hood right now after going into the tires.
That is the second time as well, and it's almost a mirror image. The difference being this time he did not just glance the wall. Let's see if we can pull this replay up. It wasn't too long ago. This is Daniel Doan we're looking for in the number 45. There it is, the very end of the incident. You can see the damage on the car. Boy, this Ferrari does not seem to like turn 5. Although last time it seemed to lose it on entry. This time it looked mid-corner.
Well, maybe we can...
Tell you what, while we were watching that, Wilson is now all over Duhamel. I mean, he's right back to where he was about 6 laps ago.
Heading over to Wilson to check out his perspective. They come through the S's now once more on the roof of this Porsche. This has been a chase almost the entire race. He lost touch momentarily to the 617. But he has been applying pressure since then. Seeing if there's any hole in the armor to try and take this one away. He's got an hour and a half left to do it, so there is time. But they seem very evenly matched.
Yeah, this is close enough, too, that, whenever we get closer to pit stops, which really for these guys can happen here almost any time, you've got to nail pit entry because if you give up even a 1/10 of a second there, that's going to be the difference between keeping the lead or losing the lead.
Mel with a defensive move this time down into the chicane. Doesn't lose much time, even though it's a little shallow into there. Wilson should know from that body language that he's at least got him a little nervous.
See, and if I'm Wilson there, I just keep putting on the pressure, but without putting anybody in jeopardy, and let him maybe take the chance of cooking it too much going into pit entry. Make him feel nervous about that pit entry. That's what I would do at this point, since we're going to be getting pretty close to that, as he runs really wide there off 5.
Yeah, I got to be careful how much he bounds over those outside curbs. We've already seen it take a number of victims here today. He survives it this time. They come onto the backstretch once more. And so close, yet so far. That black and white German car just can't seem to get the run that he needs. And this could be the help that he needs, though, coming up behind them. Orozco is getting ready to lap them pretty soon. If it's not this lap, it'll be in the next couple.
See, it could actually get interesting because you got Orozco back there, and then you got Jennifer McDonald actually in front of them, and I'm wondering if everybody's going to come together in around the same time. So we'll see here.
Well, that might open some doors for David Wilson. A little bit of a pick, or it could bite him as well. Duhamel could take the traffic better. It could give him the gap that he's been wanting to finally shake David away from his tail. Ooh, David very strong off turn 5 though this time. Not sure that he's going to be able to make an attack into turn 6. Sean doesn't care. He's still taking the defensive line into that corner. Now onto the backstretch. This is the closest that we've seen Wilson in a while. What can he do with this? He's trying to use as much track as possible to get the run, and I don't think it's quite enough. Behind them, gaining quickly, the DP, the Black Dog racing car on its exhibition run, probably doesn't want to affect this battle too much. He literally has nobody to battle with at this point. Ooh, and he's coming into pit. So that answers that.
Yeah, the DPs get about they're using up about a half a gallon per lap, with a 20-gallon fuel cell. So he's in desperate need of fuel right now.
That timing actually worked out very, very well for all parties involved. Comes down and hits his stall. Again, a big thanks to Julian, who organized this race, especially for putting together the charity cause for the Alzheimer's Association. Once again, if you would like to donate towards this cause, we have a link in the YouTube description where they are collecting donations, and they'll put those together, send them off after a race. California driver back out and going. Quick update on the GTD lead, because we haven't mentioned it in a long time. Ever since Eric Luke took it back from Nico, he has really just taken off like a shot. There is a 16-second gap to second place, and that is Thomas Foose.
Speaking of Nico, he is back down pit road.
This is definitely too early.
I can't see a good reason why he did. Maybe to get back on sequence with everybody? I mean, even then, that's still kind of weird at a weird time. And he certainly can't go an hour and a half.
He's in there very, very briefly.
His damage kind of snapped back into place.
Ooh, did he take a spare car?
I think he took a spare car.
I almost wonder if maybe, because John keeps harping on the underside of the car, and he has clobbered the curbs pretty hard.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, He ended up having to slide through the S's, got into the concrete, and was able to keep going. I was way back on lap 25, and I don't think his lap times were where he wanted them to be after that. So I think he decided to go ahead and just eat the time now and try to get it back as the rest of the race goes along.
Brian Hotham has come in the GTDs. He's currently 5th in that class, but he's going to lose that to Daniel Doan. I don't think has Doan come in to get repairs after he lost his hood.
Nope. he is still bonnetless.
It's the most redneck Ferrari I've ever seen.
Yeah, we got the leaders in the GTLM class coming up on lap traffic here. I think that's Jennifer McDonald in front of them.
It is indeed. So the Ferrari going to hold to the right. Is she going to lift to let them through, make life a little bit easier? Yes, she is. Nicely done by the slower class car. Duhamel certainly doesn't want to be held up because Wilson continues to breathe down his neck.
Nico is around again. This time turn 5. Trying to see if he hit anything.
Slight contact with the wall.
For a race that started out so promising for him.
Yeah, from second on the grid to unfortunately having multiple incidents. There was hard contact with the rear of the car into the wall. You're going to see it here as he tries to back it out of the racing line. Unfortunately, it cost him. He's going, but I'm not sure how good the car is going to be handling, because that's the diffuser probably damaged. The mid-engine car certainly didn't like a good thwack to the rear, I'm sure.
And Eric Luke has come down pit road. This looks like it's probably a scheduled stop. Now, one thing I did notice, of course, all these cars, especially Mercedes, susceptible to damage on the front end with the curves. His front end snapped back into place. Now, it's critical because if he runs into problems later on in this race, I think he just accidentally used his fast repair.
Well, it might have been accidental. It might have actually been what he wanted, depending on what the damage, how the car was handling. Or he could have gotten a meatball that we didn't know about.
It wasn't a lot. I mean, it looked like curb damage, so I haven't seen anything here that would have been bad at all, and his lap times are great. So I just think hey, I've done it enough times, made that mistake of leaving my fast repair on, so I think it might just happen.
It's so easy to do. He comes back out in 4th place. This gives Thomas Foos the lead temporarily. Foos with about a 5-second lead, 6-second lead roughly, over Jennifer McDonald, who is now promoted into 2nd place. Both cars still waiting for that first pit stop. I guess the magic number would be somewhere around an hour 7 left to go, which I'm guessing nobody should be able to make in either class. Or one stopper.
I've actually been sitting here calculating the possibility of being able to do this on one stop, especially, someone like David Wilson. But the battle has been so intense between these two. I don't think he's saving, but it is possible if he's short shifting, especially now later in the game when his tires are worn. I mean, they're only about a half a second slower than, when they started this race. It is possible he can save fuel, but it's going to be close.
Have you ever talked to your brother about fuel strategies, John?
He needs a little help with that.
Yeah, it did. Might be something you could advise him on.
See, the best part about it is Sean cannot defend himself publicly.
I guess we'll have to tell John that story a little bit later. I guess Sean has enlightened him as to what happened there, but we'll come back to that in a bit. Oh, and Nico Versbicki has had another slide, this time in turn 3, and he's taken a toe.
That toe looked like he's probably just going to call it a day kind of toe. There wasn't any damage on the car.
Didn't hit anything, yeah.
I think just kind of deciding to leave well enough alone at this point. But, I mean, the day really did start promising for him.
You know, I'm going to put that on it being a green Ferrari. I think the racing gods just didn't take kindly to that.
Well, you know, back in the old days of NASCAR, there was the superstition that green was bad luck.
I've heard that with Indy cars as well.
And then Harry Gant proved them all wrong.
Right? Mr. Highline Harry Gant.
I was going to say British Racing Green. That's not considered unlucky. So. Wow.
Oh man, who were the green cars? It was they used to run kart. Yeah.
The cool Racing Green.
Yeah, I think that's who I'm thinking of. That Paul Tracy drove for a while.
Yeah, I think it was Andretti. Oh, is this a pass for position on screen?
Lap traffic's just getting a little interesting.
Lap traffic, yeah.
Sitting here reminiscing about the old days.
Yeah, that was almost an opportunity for Wilson because that was the GTLM leaders that we were watching trying to get through. Actually, very late moment for Wilson to have to try and dive through and salvage it to stay within touch. Also involved our leader in the GTDs, Thomas Foose.
And while we were watching that, Nico did decide to call it a day.
Had a few retirements already. Alexander Canel, Pierre-Antoine Guiguer, Troy Banks is gone. George D'Angelo has left the race. We just mentioned Nico Weiersbicki. Christopher Sherburne still out there running after losing multiple laps, but he is currently 9th in class.
At this point, just trying to pick off what he can after apparent connection problems early in the race. So, he's soldiering on and not doing too terrible. I mean, the last lap time of 1:23. Never mind that. He was involved in that whole little mess right there, so that cost him a few seconds. But other than that, his lap times have been respectable compared to the position he's in. So.
Speaking of lap times, because of that lap traffic, Wilson has dropped back to nearly a second behind Duhamel. So the battle for the lead that we've been watching in the GTLMs has split apart slightly. That was our closest fight for the longest time.
It's fallen back that far before. He'll catch back up.
I think I'm going to go on record here. I think David Wilson can make it with one stop.
Bold prediction. See if that comes true. He's only got to make, about 13 more minutes out there? We've yet to see, well, I was going to say we've yet to see any of our GTLMs, but we have had Simpson in. Michael Simpson has taken a stop. He's definitely on a two-stopper.
I mean, the track temperature has dropped 10 degrees from what we've started. Obviously, the cooler track temperatures, the cooler air. I think, like I said, I've already made my bet, so I'm predicting one stop.
We ride on board with our second place Porsche. Continuing on. I'm surprised we haven't seen more of the GTD cars come in as well. Since we have seen Muller come in and pit, Hotham has taken a stop. Eric Luke, our former leader, has come in and out. In fact, Luke should come back with the lead, get it back once the other cars ahead of him take their scheduled stops. We haven't seen any major dramas with the number 4 Apex button box Mercedes. of all the tracks that they could have chosen for the end, not only is it appropriate with them sort of paying homage to the Petit Le Mans here, but one thing I like about them choosing this one, Adam, is this track. We keep talking about how it can bite people, especially places like Turn 5. I think it throws up a little bit of unpredictability. Even when cars are this spread apart, it's still kind of unsure how this is all going to wind up.
Yeah, and we're at the point of the day where it's now 4:07 in virtual standard time, as you like to call it. Track temperature has gone down 11 degrees since the start of this race. So we're past peak heating of the day. Sun's starting to get a little bit lower in the sky. Not a lot yet. That'll be more dramatic here toward the end of the race. We're expecting it to be so dark that the headlights, you'll be able to see them on the track. But that changes the track, and it's a tough place that you have to hit your marks in a couple of spots anyway, or you're going to have a bad day real quick. So this is a challenging place to be able to try to run 2 hours and 15 minutes of just perfect lines, perfect all the time.
Yep. If Eric Luke does not pizza and French fry, he's going to have a bad time. So this number 4 trying to stick to the slopes that he knows. Just an hour and 18 left on the clock. And he's waiting for those in front of him to come in for their pit stops to see whether or not he will get that lead back. I'm sure he feels relatively confident about it, even though he can't really tell what's going on around him other than seeing what's outside of his car and what's on his F3 box. Wonder if we could see our gainers and losers. Who's our drivers that have made climbs here today, because we haven't looked at that yet. Some of that is going to be a little bit offset from the...
and guys, David Wilson, he went into pit lane and hit the wall.
Oh!
Head.
Major dramas for Wilson. That was a hard hit. You can see the damage on the rear of the car.
Yeah, this will be a fast repair for him.
He hit the tires and just kept letting it roll into the wall there.
See, thankfully is able to get it turned around and going once again, but with the small margins he was working with our leader Duhamel, this is a race lost, I'd say.
And he might have a penalty because of where he went in relation to the cones. He was on the inside of the pit entry cones there when he got himself corrected and straight. So this could be a very long stop.
And it was Donald Olson who was chasing, but Olson was a long ways back, so I'm not even sure if the 33 will inherit second place. Wilson's back out. 33-second stop. Interestingly quicker than Michael Simpson's. Oh, and Duhamel is in. So neither driver can do it on a one-stopper. And Sean might not be aware of the dramas that have happened behind him.
No, he was obviously watching David Wilson fairly close. I mean, I would be surprised if he hadn't realized just how much he's fallen off and how quickly he fell off. Like, it had to have been more than a normal stop.
Jennifer McDonald is now in her stall. Again, we're wanting to watch Eric Luke, since he should be overtaking her, unless she's got a short stop this time. See Duhamel taking his scheduled stop. He's joined by Bowden. Olson seems to be the
Here
one to be
comes
able
Wilson.
to continue.
Wilson
has-
just got him.
Now, this is a two-stop strategy, so maybe Wilson's taken his short stop first.
Maybe.
Duhamel is back out. And if he is aware of what happened to Wilson, he's going to be a little bit confused.
So, guys, here's educate me on this. If these guys have an incident like we saw Sean have, if they grab their fast repair, does that fast repair come with a full tank of fuel and tires?
No,
No,
it does
no,
not.
you still have to do all that.
Okay.
So no, he's still got to pay the price that everybody else does. Tom Foose is in, our temporary leader in the GTDs, which is going to hand that over to Mark File. McDonald did come out behind Luke. Just wanted to note, since we were watching that before. We're on board with the Buckeye as he waits for his fuel and tires to finish. Luke is coming around right now. His stop was a 1:09.4, which is actually much longer than those around him. He's going to get by Foose anyways. In fact, is Foose going to be passed by McDonald? Foose is still stationary. McDonald is on the front stretch. Foose is out, but it is too late. And Jennifer McDonald now finds herself in second place. Well, third place right now, but will be second once File pits. He's the last one that we're waiting on. Oh, and McDonald, just as I look away, she manages to stay out of the wall. And Foose retakes the place from her.
She got loose really early in that corner too, right in front of, by the way, Rosacco. But fantastic job keeping it out of the wall and tires there.
Gets it going without hitting a thing, but unfortunately loses what that pit stop had gained her. We keep talking about the potential one-stopper, and Mark File right now is one of the closest to making that happen. He holds the lead, and he's got it by about 30-some seconds over Eric Luke. Now, he's not going to be able to get out in time to stay ahead of him, but he doesn't have to. He just has to be close enough. They're running about 1:20 laps. Let's see, he's got to make about 5 more laps to get to it, and he's not going to make it because now he's got to pit. So don't think we'll see any driver on a one-stop strategy. File takes that 77 down to pit lane speed. Eric Luke should be streaming by momentarily. You see the number 4 Apex button box Mercedes. Down and across the line. File stationary is finally overtaken as Eric Luke back to the lead. Now, who is he going to be fighting, though? Is he going to get out in time for McDonald? Foose is coming around. Foose is through. And McDonald is through. In fact, he might be behind Derek Muller, as File just about done with his pit stop, we expect. Derek is by. Ooh, it's looking like a long stop, though, for File. Doan comes and pits as well, but we expected him to come in. It's a very long stop. Oh, wow. Did File speed in pit lane? This is unusually long compared to everybody else. 1:23. If it's
Doesn't
about,
look like he's sped.
15 seconds would be about a 108, and we saw Luke and Foose take a 109. I think that was a penalty. We'll have to ask him after the race if we get a hold of Mark. Regardless, that sets him a long ways back. He returns in 6th position in his class. That does run out the last of our pit stops. Brings us to just about halfway through this race. We're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We'll come back with the final half here of the finale for the Simulated Sports Car Racing League here at Road Atlanta, so don't go away. Welcome back to Road Atlanta. We're watching the season finale of the Simulated Sports Car Racing League. And up at the front of the GTLMs is David Wilson Jr., who took it after the pit stops with strategy we've been debating over the break. And then Eric Luke is leading the way in the GTDs. The DP class has a lone runner, Julian Orozco, basically on an exhibition run. So really, that's why we're not reporting on that, and that's why you only see one car up there. And Julian just looking to try and take the checkered flag for pride.
Which, if he goes through the S's like he just did again, he may have not much pride left. Ooh, that got a little hairy for him there for a second.
Yeah, now since we don't have any direct battles on track, we got some time to talk about this strategy. And John, you and I were kind of discussing things and try to figure this out, rack our brains, because for our viewers who missed it, David Wilson had a wreck on his way into the pits, and you noted that he did not take repairs, or did not take his free repair, I should say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's still got that heavy damage to the right front fender. He just comes across the line right now. I'm trying to understand the strategy to help the viewers understand, what's possibly in play here. But I guess time will tell. Obviously, my one pit stop prediction at this point doesn't hold any merit. So I guess we'll have to wait and see, Joe.
Yeah, they were thinking maybe he didn't take tires during the stop and just refueled, got a little bit of the damage banged back out and went on his way, which could potentially mean that he takes tires at the next stop if he stops quickly. He doesn't want to go long because he couldn't be able to take advantage of those fresh tires at that point. And he's got an hour left to go.
Now, it's possible he can finish this on the set of tires he started with. Track temperature is 85 degrees, so we're down 15 degrees from when we started. This track has rubbered up heavily, as you can see here, him going into 10A. So if it's a fuel deal, he can come in just for a splash of what he may need. But then the question becomes, does Sean have to do the same thing? Sean being in second right now.
And he's in second by a long ways back. There's about 18 seconds between himself and Wilson. So he's got time to make up. If Wilson does go without tires on this next stop and Duhamel takes them again, that could bump it up to as far as, let's see, about 36 seconds or so if things stay the same.
Well, currently Duhamel is turning 6/10ths quicker than Wilson right now, but that is a lot of real estate that he would need to gain, and I don't think he can do it on the current scenario.
Yeah, I mean, we'd be looking at something like 50 laps at that pace, but then it could increase if the tires continue to go off. If they go off a cliff, as they say for Wilson, he could gain quicker towards the end. A lot of question marks, though. This is fascinating. We usually don't get this much variance in strategy between drivers on these endurance races, and it leaves us wondering who is going to be the victor today. Not really as much of a question mark down in the GTDs, because unless Eric Luke has some serious issues, he looks pretty set to take this one home. You can never say never around this track. As we take a look at the number 4 machine, he's got a 17-second lead over Thomas Foose, which is just about the entirety of the backstretch, to give you an idea of the gap.
Yeah, and Jennifer McDonald's is doing a great job. She had that off-track incident about 20 minutes ago. She's turning some great lap times right now. She's about 6/10ths quicker than our leader, Eric Luke.
Yeah, and I was looking at Eric Luke's lap times too, and really, I'm not sure anybody's really quicker than him as much as he's, I honestly think, taking it easy at this point and just trying to make sure that he just hits his marks and it doesn't overuse the car. So that's going to be something to watch out for if he is actually slower, if he's just managing a gap.
Watching from McDonald's perspective, the DTL Motorsports 55 through turn 3 currently She's got 7 seconds up to second place Thomas Foose. She was ahead of Foose for just a brief moment. If you're just joining us, she spun here in this corner in turn 5, handed the position back over immediately after her pit stop, gave away what could have been a potential second position in her class. Those 7 seconds could yet still be made up as we have 40 some odd laps left to go in this race. That's estimated though. It is a timed race. You can see the time dot on your screen, 59 minutes left.
We got our leader in the DP class coming up on David Wilson, the leader in our GTLM class here. He'll probably wait and pass him coming out of 7.
Yeah, I would expect that to be the case. There you see the only DP of Julian Orozco coming off of turn 7. Get a little bit of wheel spin. He wants to try and get this pass done on the straightaway so that he doesn't bother either himself or our leader in the GTLMs. And indeed, he's going to be able to sneak on by. That's the second lap that he's put on the rest of the field. Once again, thanks for joining us here on the Global SimRacing Channel to watch this final round of the Simulated Sports Car Racing League. This is the season finale, but it is also a charity race, and we want to continue to remind people that if you would like to donate to the Alzheimer's Association, who they are raising money for, we have a link in the YouTube description. Glance on down when you got a chance and pop some money in. You can open a different tab. We promise we'll keep you updated. If you just listen, if something wild happens, you'll hear us yelling. But see if you could help out a little bit to the Alzheimer's Association and help a great cause for something that has affected many people the world around. Going to our leader in the GTLMs, who is just passed by Orozco that we saw. It is still holding at about 16.3 seconds ahead of Duhamel. See the difference in the lap times, about that half second quicker. I'm pretty sure that we've got it right then, that Wilson did not take tires and is on old rubber, while Sean has fresh stuff underneath him and is trying to make good on that time while he can. Now, the interesting thing about this strategy too, John, is we saw that David had a really tough time trying to get by Sean. Now, granted, that was on equal footing with the tires, but the difficulty in passing that it seems there seems to be for the GTLM class makes me almost wonder if David's thinking all I have to do is get track position maybe, and I've got this thing locked down.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, he's racing the track now. Whereas before, you know, the first stint, the first half of the race, he was following Sean. So if Sean made a mistake, and I'm not saying Sean did, because both those drivers were on key for hitting their spot, you know, hitting their marks, but he's racing the track. So I imagine he has his F3 screen up, just kind of notice as he locks the left front tire up there going into 10A. He's just trying to manage his equipment and just race the track.
Certainly has been quite a bit by himself with the number of retirements that we've had. We still have 14 cars running on track. So the strategy, if it was to get the track to himself, it has worked out very well. This is Sean that we're watching, ticking off yet another of his own laps. Now into lap 60. Excuse me, into lap 61. Oh, and Doan is in the pits again. Is this scheduled, or was this with some damage? It's been about 30 seconds. Oh, it was some damage. This happened about a little less than a minute ago. Daniel Doan found the wall in the S's.
It's been a big problem spot for him today.
Let's see the replay one more time. Let's hope.
Looks like he just caught a little bit of the grass right there and just carried him right into the wall.
You know, I'm thinking after the race here, we can get some of these Ferrari hoods and bid them off to raise money for the Alzheimer's Association.
That sounds like a good idea to me. Unfortunately, the only ka-chow that Doan had was into the wall today. So the 45 having to take a tow, get repairs, and sit patiently. Christopher Sherburne's happy about this, though. He won't get the position this time, I don't think. But next time by, as long as Doan doesn't come back out on track, I believe the 135 should get another one. That'll move him up to 7th when that happens. Gone Broke Racing livery looking very Grand Theft Auto. Certainly Sherburne trying to drive it like he stole it, get as much pace as he can out of the car to make up the lost time with the internet connection problems we believe he had earlier.
Adam, we haven't heard a post-it note reference here for quite some time.
Yeah, I think he used up all of that there was of those.
All my notes fell off the wall, unfortunately. So.
Oh, jeez. I knew we were opening up the door to something.
Well, speaking of the open of the door, Derek Muller is currently under siege here with looks like a Ford behind him.
Yeah, that's Michael Simpson, so that's not the same class, but he does have to make sure that he stays out of the way since these cars are close on pace. From the gearbox of Derek, looking back at Simpson. Simpson won't want to hold up either of them too much. He's going to try it under braking, and he slips through. Nicely done by both drivers.
Tell you what, Sean Donnell, he just turned a 1:17.7 in second in our GTLM class.
That's only a 10th off of his fastest lap of the race so far. 17.6 is his best. Sean's hustling it. He's trying to make the best out of this. We haven't talked too much since we saw that Ford GT now overtake one of the GTD cars. That the similarity in pace, I have to imagine that could affect the overall race pace of these cars quite a bit, especially if whoever they're trying to lap isn't very cooperative in trying to let them by.
Yeah, we saw that you know, Derek did a great job. He knew he was faster. He was going to try to outbrake him. Why not let him go and save time for both of them? Currently, right now, watching David Wilson, he is struggling with that tire grip under braking. You see the left front and the right front locking up on him. So this could be something that could be concerning for him if he's trying to go on one set of tires, which that appears to be the case.
He locks him up this time. Looked a little bit smoother on his way through the chicane. It is down to 15.5 seconds. Duhamel is making inroads, but is he making enough inroads is the big question mark. And also, when will we see Wilson come in to pit? Does he make it his middle stint the short one? Does he make his last stint the short one? Just logging laps for now in that Porsche. The Pilot Performance Group number 39 has been in the lead ever since our last pit stop.
Let's keep the camera on this. I'd like to see if we can get a shot of that left front here as he goes into 7.
Watch.
No, maybe he threw some more brake into the rear, and you got to be careful of that too, right? As the fuel in these mid-engine cars wears off, that rear end becomes light. So he may have threw some more brake bias towards the rear of the car. If that be the case, he's going to have to get acclimated to that new braking pressure.
Down into the chicane. I'd say he's got what looks like a pretty good handle on it. See the speed of the car picking up as they get wound up down the front stretch. 155 miles an hour before he has to get on the brakes for turn 1, taking it at a shocking 115 miles an hour through that right-hand sweeper.
You know, we talk about it about every 30 minutes, but the track temperature right now, 20 degrees cooler, or almost 20 degrees cooler than when we started this race. So even with old tires, the pace of some of these guys are going to start to be, you'll see them get faster. Obviously, Sean just again turned a 117.7, so that's certainly a case for Sean.
Yeah, Sean.
There's not too many guys now that once said, "Oh, I think the post-it note jokes have finally struck out," as Derek Moeller has posted it into the wall, going into turn 1 on his lap 64.
Oof. Yeah, that engine was smoking, and the life is funny on the back of the car, but not when the front is this damaged. Yep, curb to the inside, and it's spun. Oof. Watch from on board the Midwest driver. Hard slam. There is no coming back after that one. Well, they're going to have to use some post-it notes as they try to collect the bits and put them back on the car. Make note of what goes where. Meanwhile, up at the front, it is still Eric Luke, 17 seconds ahead of Thomas Foose. Hasn't had any such problems with severe damage on the car. In fact, have we seen any dramas for the number 4?
No, he's, you know, Eric has had a clean race. He's got that Apex button box still looking clean and new.
Just running his own race, looking to get to the finish. He's been controlling this thing from the front for the vast majority of it, only handed it over during the pit stops. Now, did something happen to Jennifer McDonald when we weren't looking? Because she is now 5 seconds farther behind Thomas Foose. It was 7 before, now it's 12.
Well, we had Julian in the DP car come up on her going into the corner of 10. So I think she, again, just
had a slide coming turn 6, and that also lost some of that time. Then the number 39. And your leader in the GTDs is Eric Luke in the number 4. This is your overall leader, out to just have a Sunday cruise. Julian Orozco in the number 15 is the only DP if you're just joining us.
Let's give a shout out to Brian Hotham here. We haven't talked about him at all during this event. He's running the Moxie Racing International Mercedes AMG. He's had a great, clean race. Been quiet, so we haven't talked about him, but he's currently in 10th overall, 4th in his class, having a good, solid run.
The number 13 is another one who has certainly been kind of running his own race, not really worried about everybody else around him.
And I think that is Sean behind him, coming up on him.
That is Donald Olson. That is 3rd place in the GTLMs. VHR Racing. That is not our leader. He is also pretty much all on his own. Number 33 should make this an easy pass down the back stretch. Does look very similar paint scheme to the 617. There he goes on by. Now, we mentioned earlier about Christopher Sherburne taking 7th away from Doan. That did happen, and Doan is actually still taking repairs, so he hasn't come back out. He's 15 laps down now. Sherburne is, if I'm seeing correctly, about 5 laps behind Derek Muller. And Muller's still in the pits himself. So Christopher, as the more that post-it note car sits in there and gets repairs done, the closer the Too Slow Racing 45 gets and looks at another position, a top 6 potentially. I'd say the Dory Award is going to have to go to Christopher here today for really sticking it out and scalping spots.
I wonder if they could use the post-it notes like Barabond, you know, just kind of stick them all over the car.
Oh, not
fix
you
it up.
too.
Boy, that would be the flimsiest Barabond I'd ever seen.
Hey,
They're the strongest
meanwhile,
post-it notes we've ever seen.
Yeah, Sean Demal he is just blistering the track right now. That time by David Wilson kind of picked it up, but he was turning laps a second faster than David Wilson, who's our current leader in the GTLM.
Yeah, he set a new fastest lap for himself, a 17.4. Actually, is that the fastest overall? Well, besides Julian Orozco. It's unfortunate that because of Julian, we won't be able to really tell. So yeah, that was the fastest lap of the race for Sean Duhamel there on lap 67, a 1:17.417. You compare that to his qualifying lap, which was a 1:16.9, so he was only half a second slower than his fastest lap in qualifying.
Yeah, in qualifying they had a green track and a little heat in the track. Right now they're coming up to Adam talked about it earlier. The sun's starting to set here. The track is rubbered up. What that does is it helps these cars in the corners, but it really slows them down overall. So they're not going to get the same speed as possibly qualifying. But he's really turned up the flame in that Porsche 991.
Botham takes his own stop. He was sitting in 4th place, was he not? So he's been overtaken by Mark File. But this is the second stop for Brian. This should take him to the end, and already he's done. Back out he goes. Sherburne has overtaken Muller while we weren't looking. So this promotes Christopher up to P6. We've also got Michael Simpson now in for a stop. 5th place in the GTLM class, and the Simtech racing car tumbles a little bit down the order. In fact, he's actually been passed for position by the leaders in the GTDs. That's how close they were, even after almost 2 hours of racing at this point. We've only got 39 minutes left to go.
Yeah, the last little bit of this race has really gone fast, despite some of the battles kind of spreading out a little bit here. But it's kind of sometimes how races here at Road Atlanta go. And sun's starting to get a little lower in the sky now too, almost 5:30 virtual time. So we'll still add another hour onto that. So it'll be getting pretty dim by the end of this thing.
This might look like Ford versus Ferrari, but this is not for the same class, even though it's for overall position. Simpson should be able to run away from McDonald, the faster class car. So Jennifer not being held up here for any fans of the 55 that might be a little bit worried. Of the cars on the lead lap, if I'm not mistaken, I'm seeing that we still have 10 machines, barring a Roscoe, that are still running on the lead lap. The last of them being Brian Hotham. Most of our battles have separated and now have become strategic battles. So the main one we've been watching has been between Duhamel and Wilson. Now, did Duhamel get held up though? Because it was back up to 13 seconds. And in fact, his lap times the last, the previous 2 laps, a 118 flat and a 118 flat. Now he's got it back together and it's a 117.4. Did he have traffic there?
I don't know if he had
Like he
traffic,
had-
but David Wilson has consistent laps in the 117s again. So it may be a case of where David has just turned it up.
Could be that the car's getting lighter as well. Less fuel on board. Maybe those old tires fare better with a little bit less weight to throw around. We're watching Sean Duhamel in the 617. He's cut it back down to 12.3 since I last looked about half a lap ago. So he's gotten back on it. But again, he has to hustle if he wants this. We still don't know yet if Wilson will take tires or if he's going to try and take it to the end. I think it's starting to look more like he is just going to take it to the end, because once it gets past a half an hour, there's really not much he can do with fresh tires.
To give our viewers an idea, David Wilson is going into 1 right now, and Sean DeMel, he's coming down the hill, coming across the start-finish line. So there's a good, little over a quarter of a mile in between these 2 cars.
We're right on board with our leader, David Wilson. He spent much of it with a very different view from what we see here. The rear of the 617 Porsche was in his windscreen and he could not get around even when he got close. I believe our leader has just pitted, and the GTD class, Eric Luke, is in. Foose is going to stay out, so he'll inherit the lead in the GTDs. He's found his stall. And McDonald is in. So she's employing the same strategy as Eric Luke.
Yeah, it looks like Eric Luke just took fuel only.
Yeah, I wouldn't think this late in the race he'd be able to do much with tires. So 20-second stop for Eric. He returns to the track. What about McDonald? Is she also doing fuel only? Will she take tires? She's currently in her stall. They cannot take tires and fuel at the same time. If you're new to sports car racing here on iRacing, they are forced to do fuel first, and then if they elect to take tires, it will give them tires after.
And she does. She's taking tires. Probably not the call I would take. She's been turning some pretty good lap times.
What's this going to do comparatively to Eric Luke with his 20-second stop? 39 seconds for McDonald, about 20 seconds more. She's going to come out in a little bit of traffic. That's just on Bowden with Brian Hotham in front of him. Eric Luke returned in second place. Such was the gap to the rest of the field. The only driver able to go by, especially since McDonald also pitted, was Thomas Foose. Watching from McDonald's perspective, again, she doesn't want to be held up too much here. And her fellow GTD car of Hotham knows it. He's just going to let her go. That is Thomas Foose actually in front of her. So that is our current leader. But again, on a different strategy, but he has every incentive to try and hold her up so that he doesn't have to fight with her later on. He's going to stay out for another lap.
I'd be interested to see what these tires yield for Jennifer in this strategy. You talked about it. She's got Foose in front of her, so I don't know that she's going to get some good solid laps in here until she can get that pass made. But it'd be interesting to see what kind of makeup time she can do on the track.
Well, now's the time she's got to do it, when she's got the freshest tires possible. 33 minutes left on the clock. Still have 12 cars left running out of our 19 starters here today. Our retirees so far: Alex Wood is gone, Cannell is out, Gijwer is gone, Troy Banks retired early, George D'Angelo looked like a good race was potentially on the cards, but unfortunately he also has exited early. Nico Versbicki, who was very fast, potentially could have had a win today, but too many mistakes cost that Ferrari. Daniel Doan is still in the pits taking repairs, but it's been 22 minutes. The 45 is so far behind, I'm not sure that he could gain any spots, even if someone retired ahead of him at this point, so he might as well be out of this race. Derek Muller, who also was fighting for podiums, unfortunately has been in for 16 minutes, 16 laps down from the overall leader. Is not good for him. The last car running is Christopher Sherburne, currently in sixth place, who lost connection, came back, and trudged on to see what he could salvage.
Hey Joe, Sean Duhamel, he just shaved that time in half. To actually, David Wilson is in the pits.
Leader pitting now. All right, let's watch to see whether or not the number 39 will take tires. This will say a lot about how this race will go.
He's revving it up like he's not going to.
It's going to be quick if he doesn't. No tires. Doing it all on the same set. 13-second stop for the number 39. This essentially forces Duhamel to not take tires himself.
Well, we think Duhamel, he took tires on that last stop. He had a little bit over a minute pit stop, so I think he's set good on tires. Obviously, we saw his pace be extremely fast. What I was about to say before Wilson got into the pit is he cut that gap down in half to 6 seconds. So those tires are paying dividends for Sean right now.
Yeah, but will they continue to pay those dividends during the final 30 minutes? He does not pit this time. He will have to come in once more to at least take fuel. Behind all of this, we haven't really mentioned it because he's been a little bit far back, but the final podium position in the GTLMs is going to go to Donald Olson. This has been a great race from the number 33. Considering we had 6 in his field starting, I'd say that he should be proud of this. He qualified P5. I believe that's P5 overall, actually.
Yeah, he had one incident earlier on going up through the S's where it kind of lost the back end. That's where he got the rear end damage from. He used the concrete to help straighten him back up. But other than that, I mean, it's been a near perfect day for Olson.
That'll be something to be proud of here in the season finale. Keeping half an eye on our overall leader. On our GTLM leader. Our overall leader is still Julian Orozco. By the way, on lap 82 currently is the number 15 for those who are cheering on Julian. Duhamel does not come in for a pit stop this time by. Here, give a little bit of love to the lone DP out racing. Talk about a glutton for punishment. No other drivers to race against. No nobody in your class trying to run 2 hours and 15 minutes just to see what you can do. And again, no cautions here on the roadside, especially in endurance racing here on iRacing. So it is a straight sprint from beginning to end.
David Wilson is currently 30 seconds behind Sean Duhamel. Let's see, with the pit stop last time of 36 seconds. Let's see if Sean, when he comes in, what type of pit stop he can have.
At least the pit entry is a little bit better for Wilson.
Olsen is off track. He went straight coming down the S's. And I'm going to guess by the comment we just heard from Warzako, he's calling it a day here.
He didn't hit anything.
And he's done.
I wonder if this is hardware failure. Well, this is incredibly disappointing. Commentator's curse strikes again. Just up through turn 3, pulls off, parks it, and calls it a day. This hands third over now to Don Bowden. Number 5 now on the podium. But still a long ways back from our leaders because he still has yet to take his pit stop. He's 13 seconds behind Wilson, who's completed his stop. How far can Sean Duhamel stretch this fuel is the other question. Because he still has not pitted. And he's the one that we want to watch because this is for the GTLM lead.
Yeah, and stretch the fuel you don't want to do. I mean, there's no call for it right now. You don't want to run out of fuel here at this 2.5 mile road course.
Well, I wonder if he's simply trying to run as many fast laps as he can to ensure that he's going to jump Wilson in the pit stops. Just because right now I think he'll be ahead of him. It was 36 seconds cone to cone for the number 39 machine on his second stop. And it is currently 30 seconds between Duhamel and Wilson, which to me says that as long as Duhamel has a similar pit stop, which we expect he should, he will come out in front.
Let's see if he comes in this time. I know he stayed out probably 3 or 4 laps longer than he did on the initial pit stop of David Wilson. So he doesn't take it this time.
Now, going to continue around one more lap. I can tell you that Olsen has indeed disconnected. So he is our latest retirement of the day. This is the point at which drivers really need to keep their focus. I don't think we haven't seen any driver changes, have we?
No, I went looking a few minutes ago, and I don't see any team with multiple drivers connected. So we're good there.
So these are all drivers that are going to be a little weary, having put in all these laps by themselves. Could this mean we see some mistakes potentially? Could we see a loss of pace? Love this paint scheme on this BMW of Thomas Foose, our temporary leader in the GTD. Very Allenser Jr. Or I guess Mark Martin if you're a NASCAR fan. So the number 27, we saw him go long on the first time. Continuing on in the lead. This is the same strategy employed in the second stint, but he will not retain that lead. Eric Luke should be able to step through and get back in front. Really, it's a case of both leaders in both races leaving us waiting to see when they are going to come in, and it's not going to be this lap for Foose. Keeps going. Right on board with Eric Luke, who comes down the hill into the braking for the last chicane. "22 minutes now left to go on the clock. This would be the last laps of the season for these drivers.
Yeah, right now, David Wilson lap times are about 6-7 tenths slower than Sean Duhamel. And I'm looking at the gap here. Right now, it's roughly a 32 second gap in between those two drivers. But the best pit stop from cone to cone is in the high 30s. So I don't know if Sean's going to be able to hold on to this lead.
We watch Duhamel whip his way around. Oh, and Daniel Doan, who came back out on track, I think was trying to run a few laps to see if he could get to the end. It looks like he blew his engine. And this was down into the chicane. Let's look at the replay here. I was just about to comment that he came back out, and he was a very hardy soul trying to do what he can, since I don't think he would have been able to gain any positions.
It's right when he went over coming into the left and right-hander here is right when he hit the right-hander, hit the curbing, and that's when the engine finally let go on him.
Just a little bit too much damage. Maybe the shifts didn't go well. We're not sure, but the Too Slow Racing number 45 is back into the pits once more, and I'm pretty sure he's going to have to call it a day after that one. That definitely will make him another retirement. Duhamel now coming into turns 6 and 7 and onto the backstretch. We're still waiting for that last pit stop with only 20 minutes left. An update on the overall positions, just for those curious. Christopher Sherburne is very close to getting another overall spot, but not one within his class. He'll stay in 6th, but he'll now be 11th overall once he puts down Donald Olson. From Sherburne's perspective in the 135, this is certainly a never say die attitude. See from inside the cockpit, despite his situation, things look pretty calm from Christopher. Really no dramatic movements. That car handling pretty beautifully.
Now this track temperature now 25 degrees cooler than when we started this race. We've actually have Sean Duhamel. He's tinkering with the high 116 laps. The last time by was his best lap of this race, 117.0.
All right, Sean. You're pushing. You're clearly trying to get the most out of it. That was nearly a qualifying time from the number 617. But he still continues on. Clearly happy on those tires. As the car gets ever lighter with the fuel burning off. But you could see the sun really coming down now. It is currently just past 6 p.m. virtual standard time here in Atlanta.
And Sean now has Eric Luke right in front of him going through the S's. That's surely going to cost him some time there.
Yeah, and every second is going to count. This is our, what should be our leader in the GTDs, Eric Luke. So he's not going to want to really hop out of the way, even though he's not racing anybody currently. Trying to do his own thing as they come down the back stretch. The Porsche versus the Mercedes, one class over the other. And it's taken a bit for him to get up there. Now a little bit of a lift from Luke to help the pass, and it's done.
Looks like Luke's teammate is right in front of Sean there. I guess Sean's going to have to do the same thing on this lap.
It certainly is. That is Mark Feil sitting there in 4th position currently in the GTD class. And catching him at a bad spot coming down through the S's. Watching from Feil's gearbox. Let him through here. He's to the inside. Brakes early. Nicely done by Mark Feil. He doesn't want to really get in the way of anything. He's got nobody to battle out on track. And we've got Brian Hotham in the pits. I think this is a scheduled stop.
Hey, Eric Muller's passing by right there on your screen just a second ago. He's made it back out there. Foose in for a scheduled stop.
This will hand the lead back over to Eric Luke. We're waiting for this one. So hopefully those post-it notes are sticky enough to hold together the number 37 car. He is 13 laps. Actually, it'll be 15 laps, I believe, away from the next car up, which is Christopher Sherburne. So this one is just for pride for Muller at the moment.
Yeah, there's really no position he can gain at this point with just a little over 15 minutes left of the race.
I'll tell you what, Sean Duhamel he must have very good fuel mileage because 15 minutes left now, still has not come in for that second stop. And running an incredible pace.
Yeah, keep in mind the past 3 laps he's had lap traffic. You know, he just got by the Derek Muller car. They're going through turn 2 up to the S's, so he's got a clean track in front of him. And let's see if he can get back into the 117s, possibly a 116.
Don Bowden comes in pits from
and
third
here he
place.
comes in the pit road.
All right, finally our leader in. Where's Wilson? Wilson's coming onto the backstretch right now. There's a 35-second gap between them when this pit stop started.
I don't know if that's going to... I think Duhamel was putting down the absolute right lap times to make sure Wilson can't grab the lead from him here. It's going to be somewhat close, though.
And he's still going to have fresher tires regardless.
Here he comes. He's onto the front straightaway now.
Sean's rolling. It's going to be very, very close. Wilson now coming up to the first corner. He needs to be closer than this. And it looks like Sean Duhamel does now have the lead. And it is by a little less than 2 seconds over Wilson. But Wilson still on the same tires that he started this race on. This is going to be a tough ask. We saw that it was difficult when they were on even rubber for him to try and get by. Now that he's got to make up time and make the overtake, I am not so sure that 39 can get this done.
Yeah, guys, with just a little over 13 minutes, we're thinking about 9 more laps for these guys. That is a tall pole to climb for David Wilson to catch up to Sean, especially with the damage that he currently has and the lap times that Sean has been turning.
By the way, we didn't update the situation on the GTD, so if you're curious, now the pit stops are mostly done for that class. Eric Luke has about 19 seconds over Thomas Foose. Both of them have taken their pit stop. Jennifer McDonald, unfortunately, with her second stop also done, is 46 seconds behind Foose. So she is on the podium, and she is about 14 seconds ahead of Mark Pfeil. But it's not looking like she'll gain anything more unless the drivers in front have a problem. Two hours and 15 minutes of racing for this finale. Only 12 of those minutes are left on our clock. Most of the pit stops have cycled through, so we do believe that most everybody is in the order that they should be in the end. I think the only one that we're waiting on is Mark Pfeil.
Such a critical part of the race right now, especially for someone like David Wilson, he had a little taste of leading this race. He was Martin's second for the first third of this race. You can't get up. Fatigue sets in. Your body's tired. You're mentally tired. Yeah, this is virtual racing, but the same, muscles that you use in real life, you're using in your sim craft. So you've got to just stay focused, turn the laps that you've been turning, and obviously Wilson picking up the pace there, and be there in case there's a mistake by Sean Duhamel.
Yeah, they were actually just about even on pace that last lap, both of them running a 1:17.9, which is a huge credit to David Wilson considering how much older his tires are, and yet still managing to keep up with them. Again, that's not going to be much consolation for the Pilot Performance Group driver because he has to now catch him and pass him, but still impressive nonetheless.
Yeah, and they got a lap car coming up to play here, and they're going to hit him at a bad time, which is going to be going through the S's.
Maybe that's the key to victory for David Wilson. Maybe he needs to use the lap traffic to his advantage. Hope that Duhamel gets caught up more than he does. Be aggressive with the lapped cars. Unfortunately for him, there's only 11 cars total on track, so 10 other than him. So lap traffic is very slow forthcoming.
Well, Sean turned it up 0.3 that time, but so did David Wilson. We see the lap car going off the track there.
Oh, and he tipped Wilson. Contact with him. Wilson spins but doesn't hit anything. He's losing precious time. Bowden is a long ways back. He's trying to find open track to get back out there. Oh my goodness. Look at how quickly your hopes for the victory can be dashed away. And that was Hotham pulling off the track to try and let the leader by. And then just as he comes back on, he's not aware that the second place GTLM Wilson is coming through. Just barely touches him. Gotta watch that F3 box.
Yeah, obviously that wasn't intentional, and he was trying to do the right thing by, clearing the track and letting the leader by, but obviously he didn't know the fierce battle going on with David Wilson behind him.
That set Wilson back to about 21 seconds behind. So unless Sean Duhamel himself has a spin, trouble with lap traffic, wrecks, maybe internet connection, this is his race to lose now. He only has to do it for 8 more minutes.
Obviously, you could see it shook Sean up because that last time by was a 119. So obviously, he saw in his, F3 standings that something happened to David Wilson, and obviously gave him a little bit of a scare.
Well, now all he has to do is cruise at this point. Should be a little bit of relief for the 617, who was having to push oh so hard in this race to take this victory. We thought it was going to come down to the wire. And although it came close relatively over the 2 hours and 15 minutes, it's going to be a little bit easier for Sean than we expected. Let's run down your order real quick of the top cars for each class, just if you're joining us, give you an update on how these races have gone. Starting with, well, Julian Orozco. We honestly don't know too much about how the race has been going, other than he hasn't seemed to have hurt the car with contact with the wall or other classes. He's just kept it going. Again, there's nobody else within his class, so this is an exhibition race to see how many he can put down. He's actually just on lap 100 right now, so not a bad feat from him to hit that mark. Going back to Sean Duhamel. Again, we just mentioned it. He was pushing very, very hard. He's been in a race with David Wilson, even though it hasn't been directly close to one another physically. He led David Wilson for the first half of the race before the pit stops. Wilson took a shorter stop, took the lead, and then he had to chase him down. He did chase him down very closely until the pit stops gave him the lead back, and then recently an error for the second place driver. David Wilson currently sits in second place. Unfortunately, it was car contact with Hotham through turns 3 and 4 that sent him spinning and cost him an opportunity at maybe thinking about a victory. Adam, what about the last two still running in our GTLM class? What are we looking at with those two?
Yeah, going back there and the tough days, trying to find them on track here, actually. Sorry, Joe, I'm having problems over here.
I'll help you out here, Adam. It's so we've got Don Bowden, Team Don Bowden, currently in third in the GTLM class. Actually, where he started from. So a nice podium finish if he finishes here. Then we have Michael Simpson with the Simtech Racing in the 957. He's up one spot, currently fourth. And then that kind of finishes the cars that are currently running in the GTLM class there.
Then we get down into the GTDs, where Eric Luke is your leader. It's been a very different story because Luke jumped out to the front, although he was challenged by the Ferrari of Nico Versbicki for a couple laps at the start. Once he got that lead back, he never looked back. The number 4 has just been out front, extending his lead. And from there, he managed his pace. It's stabilized at about 12 seconds over second place. Thomas Foos, who's not given up. He's trying, it's 17 seconds between those two currently. But Thomas has been at least sticking with it. He's led a few laps on strategy, since he had different pit strategy from Luke, but eventually when it all cycled through, he's down here in second place. The last of the podium for the GTDs is Jennifer McDonald. Definitely one of the drives of the race from me, as Jennifer came forward and basically stayed clean where everybody else around her fell by the wayside, having accidents, running into one another, getting damage. And she kept it steady in that Ferrari to move the BTL Motorsports number 55 into a top 3. We're down to 4 minutes left to go. Let's go through the rest of, honestly, our GTD drivers since we don't have too many. The last car on the lead lap, worth mentioning, Mark File, still out there running, at least lead lap within his class. The number 77, one of those drivers that, again, not the most exciting of races, but a fourth place is no mean feat. And I think he'll be happy with that in the Mercedes. Then, unfortunately, the other driver that was part of the drama that spoiled the battle for the lead. He's got a bad connection, unfortunately, number 13, so we won't stay on too long. Brian Hotham tried to pull out of the way and found himself causing an accident with Wilson that set him back multiple seconds. On to Sherburne, the last car running on the track right now since Mueller has pulled it back into the pits. The 135 gets the Dory Award of the day from me. He is 10 laps down from the overall leader, 2 laps down from the car ahead, Brian Hotham, so not too bad there, but 4 laps away from the lead lap car in the GTDs, but he managed to salvage it back to a 6th place position.
Yeah, Joe, I'm the only guy in an Audi that started this race. So impressive run by Christopher.
I'd say so. I certainly have a lot of admiration for drivers who get back out there with nobody to race on track for position and just keep swimming. We're starting to get down to the white flag very soon. I believe we're going to have 2 to go this time by for Orozco, who will determine it, even though he's not racing anybody else. He's the one that will decide when we get that white flag.
What a great strategy!
Absolutely, keeping it clean.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a tall order, and he
on his way.
The sun setting, the track with that Georgia red clay sheen to it. I imagine some of these drivers are starting to feel the fatigue of this thing ending and hoping this is the last lap.
Well, I'm pretty certain it will be, because if we go up to Julian, he's coming on the backstretch with about 50 seconds to go. Number 15 out here on that exhibition run. You're right, the sun really is going down. We are now at just about 7 p.m. virtual standard time, I believe. Just shy of
about
that.
6:55.
Indeed.
Or 45, rather. It'd be great if I could read.
He's coming around to put another lap on Christopher Sherburne. You can see across the line as the white flag waves. On through for Julian Orozco, the organizer of this league and of this race. Got to give him a little bit of love. Who also organized, I believe, the collections for our charity, which, by the way, once again, that is the Alzheimer Association. If you want to help out for this charity race, we have a link in the YouTube description if you would like to donate, so you can scroll down there during the break that we'll get to very soon here and send some money their way. Into turn 7 for the DP.
What an awesome thing to do, Julian, to put on this event and to raise awareness and financial, fiduciary duties for this just horrible disease. So kudos to him for putting on this event.
And while it's almost more ceremonial, Julian Orozco will be our overall winner, even though nobody else was there to face him. But really, our attention goes to Duhamel, who will be the next across the line in the 617. Beautifully run race for the 617, who will take victory in the GTLM class today. And actually, did Eric Luke come in behind Orozco? No, he was ahead of him. So he's got just a whole lap. He's the last car that's going to cross. And he's got about a 14-second lead.
Yeah, David Wilson, a great day overall. Just a tragic event there with a lap car, but still a solid place, second finish in this class.
Meanwhile, this is our leader in the GTDs. The sun just starting to come down over the horizon in the October sky. Eric Luke down to the braking for the chicane the last time and weaving it through. All he has to do is accelerate over the hump and weave it through that final turn. And he's got the last victory of the season. The button box, Apex button box number 4 is your victor here and Road Atlanta. We'll come back after a short break as we'll show all the upcoming races here on the GSRC, but stick around because we'll have post-race interviews as well as the unofficial results.
Welcome back to Road Atlanta, where after 2 hours and 15 minutes of racing, Julian Orzacco comes up with the overall win. Of course, he was the lone DP out there, siding in the other classes as the GTLMs come away with Sean Duhamel coming away with the win. David Wilson in second, Don Bowden, in third position there. Michael Simpson in fourth. Eric Luke will come away with the wins in the GTD. Thomas Foose will be second there. Jennifer McDonald rounds out the podium. Great run from her. Mark Feil in fourth. Fifth position is going to go to Brian Hotham. And that rounds out your overall top 10.
In 11th, we have Christopher Sheeram. In 12th, Donald Olson. In 13th, we have Derek Muller. In 14th, we have Dave Dean. In 15th, we have, Nico. Nico had that great battle with Eric Luke there at the start of the race. Unfortunately, his day ended early. In 16th, we have George D'Angelo. 17th, we have Tony Banks. And 19th, we have Pierre Finishing there and rounding out the top 20, we have Alex Wood.
All right, now rounds out the field. So we're going to go ahead and pull in the race organizer here for today, as well as the overall winner. Julian, great race out there today. Clean for you. Not a whole lot of excitement being the only car in your class, but still a lap traffic. That's no easy feat to get around Road Atlanta.
Yeah, definitely not. It was definitely interesting in that last half hour. I was getting pretty tired, dozing off almost. Triple stint at Road Atlanta is nothing to just brag about. It's just something to. I don't know. I'm just so happy to have all these drivers show up. This event go on. It's really amazing. Just this whole thing, this whole race. But yeah, it was getting kind of lonely, but all the traffic on track kept me company.
Well, of course, for you today, only car in your class, coming away with the overall win. But that really wasn't what today was about. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about why you wanted to set this up for Alzheimer's and trying to raise some money for them.
Oh well, man. This kind of came together as like an idea. I just kind of pitched it to our to my league and like, hey, you guys want to like do a charity race? And we just threw around ideas. And hey, yeah, man, this is great because the Alzheimer's affects a lot of families, and it's one like I don't want to use any choice words, but one terrible disease that affects a lot of people in this world. And we wanted to help out as much as we can. I know we're not gonna get like realistically like thousands of dollars, but anything we got, we'll give it into the association.
Absolutely. So glad you're able to do hopefully at least a little bit here today, and and I guess we'll be seeing you around.
Yeah, I hope to or look forward to watching the replay of this broadcast a little later after I calm down here and get my thoughts together.
It maybe take a nap.
Yes, it's still very early, 9:30 in the morning.
All right. Well, thanks again, Julian, and have a good day there, man. And John is going to go ahead and grab Eric Luke here next.
Yeah, I'm talking with Eric Luke, your winner in your GTD class. Eric, congratulations on your first place finish, sir.
Oh, thank you. How you guys doing today?
Oh, doing good. We saw from the start of the race, you kind of following Nico, and I'm sure you saw it, but Nico looked like he was abused in his equipment. You had a solid run, a very consistent day.
Thank you. Yeah. When Nico got around me, I just decided that I was going to sit behind him. I'd followed him around a little bit in free practice, and there was areas of the track that he was a little bit faster than me, and there was areas of the track that I was faster than him. So basically, I was just going to sit behind him for as long as I needed to, and then he eventually made a mistake. He had a cut through penalty coming up the S's, coming up the hill, and from that point on, I think he was just pushing a little too hard to try to stay with me, and that's all she wrote, I guess.
Yeah, but you managed the track. You certainly managed your car. That Mercedes looked just as clean as it did when it started 2.5 hours ago. Is there Eric? Is there anyone that you would like to thank personally for this event?
Thank you for Julian for setting us up, for setting up the charity race. Thank you to you guys for taking a Sunday to broadcast our shenanigans. And shout out to the Sim Racing Madness crew.
Well, good deal, good deal. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is your Florida driver, Eric Luke, finishing first today.
Yeah. So next up, we have got Mr. Fusen here, and overall, probably wanted to get a little bit more out of today, but still a pretty good finish out there.
Yeah, it was solid. I kind of started with the strategy of maybe stretching it just to be a one stopper. Let the guys get out too far in front. Still not sure if I would have had anything for Eric. He ran a great race. It would have taken a mistake from him for me to get by, but yeah, it was pretty clean overall, and had a good time.
Now, early on in the race, you were wrapped up in a pretty good battle there with Jennifer McDonald for a number of laps. But really, other than that, it seemed pretty quiet, other than trying to get around some of the traffic later on.
Yeah, that's definitely true. It's kind of how it goes with endurance racing. Once everything gets spread out, you're kind of just running your own pace. My second stint there was just basically trying to run qualifying lap after qualifying lap and do my best to knock off some time to Eric. But yeah, that's how it goes. You get spread out, and then anybody for a couple laps, and you might have, especially being in the GTD class, we're not generally passing people; we're getting passed. So you got to keep an eye on the mirror. But yeah, everyone, at least around me, kept it very clean, and I appreciate that.
Oh, good deal. Well, thanks for helping put on a good show here for today. Hopefully, you guys were able to raise some money for Alzheimer's, and now we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
That was Thomas Foose there, and that is going to about wrap us up here from Road Atlanta. Obviously, want to thank Julian Orzacco for putting this together. Hopefully, they were able to get some money in for the Alzheimer's Foundation. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts listed here on your screen. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today. John, Joe, Sean, Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check it out on our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at /Global SimRacing Channel, Instagram at GSRC_Graham. And don't forget to head on over to our YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button as well, so you don't miss a moment here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Until next time, we'll race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.